I grabbed my pal, Professor Todd Henderson, University of Chicago Law School, the Michael J. Marks Professor of Law, and a securities expert. Professor Henderson, welcome to the Hugh Hewitt radio program.
Colonel Schlichter, it's great to be here.
Well, it is great to have you. Now, I am a regular old-school litigator. I know nothing of your fancy securities law. I took corporations in law school and promptly forgot about it as soon as I passed the California bar exam. Do I have any kind of rights? Because this board, I'm losing out about $500 by them not taking this generous $54.20 offer by Elon Musk. I'm outraged, and more importantly, I'm impoverished. Do I have any rights as a shareholder of Twitter?
Well, you use the word fancy securities law, and honestly, it's way too fancy and way too complex. And in general, my own view is it's way too protective of corporate managers. It really started not just in the New Deal, but in 1968 when a very corrupt senator from New Jersey, this guy named Senator Williams, passed a law that made it very difficult for people like Elon Musk to take over other corporations. All these obligations to have to disclose how much you have and what your plans are. It's a little bit like telling people who are trying to come in and save the kingdom, they've got to disclose exactly what their war plans are before they do that. So the whole system is really rigged against people like Musk who are trying to take over companies to improve them. So, that's a sort of starting position. But unfortunately, under the rules as they are, from what I've seen from the public reports that's done, is pretty squarely within what their legal rights are to do.
Well, what they appear to have done, Professor Henderson, is Elon Musk obtained about a little over 9% of the company's stock, and he made an offer of $54.20 a share. It was trading at 48 yesterday. It was 45.08 on Friday. I watch the stock market like a hawk, and there's a premium there. There's money on the table. I'm a shareholder. Silly me. I thought that the board was supposed to act in shareholder interests. I don't understand how it's shareholders' interest to not get me the maximum value for my stock.
Yeah, it's a good point. So first, one thing that I think to appreciate is that it's not at all clear that Musk has made a serious offer. Just because his filing with the SEC said he hasn't really lined up the financing yet. And he said he's going to make that offer. So I just want to note at the outset that it's not exactly clear what the offer on the table is. And I think the fact that the stock price is still trading, in the 40s suggests that Wall Street really doesn't believe that he's serious about the offer. But let's take for a second that he is serious about the offer. You're right that the board's job is to maximize shareholder value. And then the question is, what is the mechanism by which they can do that? The board adopted something called a poison pill, which it's complicated, but basically it just makes it impossible for Musk to take ownership of the company without the board's approval. And if what that's designed to do is to get him to make a better offer, then they might be working in shareholders' interest. So if they say to him, look, we've taken this poison pill. If you try to take us over, we'll just bite on this pill and kill the whole company, dilute your shares and really prevent you from doing it. It's a kind of,
and won't it dilute
option.
my shares too?
Well, the way the poison pill works is that they only dilute the shares of the person trying to take over the company. So it's this trick developed by these New York lawyers. It's basically it's like in Dr. Strangelove. It's the bomb that happens that sort of kills everybody at the end. The doomsday bomb, and the idea is it never would be used. But it basically makes the board have incredible amounts of leverage for somebody who's trying to take over the company. So if the board did this and said to Musk, look, 54 isn't enough, we want to get 64, then that's something that would be actually in the shareholders' interest. You would prefer 64 to 54, I assume.
I'm no mathematician. Yeah. Just like KBJ was no biologist. But I think 64 is higher than 54.
Yeah. So what the board does is use this leverage to get a better deal for shareholders, then you'd be in favor of that. If what they do is they use the leverage to push Musk away and keep the stock at $45, then I think shareholders would rightly be upset. They unfortunately, under the current law, have pretty broad discretion to be able to do that. Now, what can you do as a shareholder? Well, you can sell your shares. You're going to get less than 54 right now. You're going to get 45 based on what you said. You can also vote in the corporate elections to get rid of this board and put in a board that would redeem the pill, get rid of this doomsday bomb that they have that would keep Musk away, and get in directors who will actually serve what are the shareholders' interests. And I think, frankly, the reason we're all talking about this is it's not just the shareholders' interest. There's a public interest in returning Twitter to something that is more sensible about, kick off Donald Trump, but keep on the Iranian mullahs, let the Chinese put all the propaganda they want out there and censor all sorts of domestic politicians. I mean, I think that's the real fundamental issue, and what Musk is trying to do is return it to being the free speech that it was intended to do. I think we should all be in favor of that. Unfortunately, the way corporate law works, the board has a lot of discretion when it comes to takeovers.
Well, Professor Henderson, that's the problem. Look, these guys want money as much as anybody else. However, what's more important to them is maintaining the power that comes with controlling the public square. And the way they are controlling the public square in such a way as to ensure that counter-narrative information is suppressed, whether it's banning Donald Trump or banning the libs of TikTok or banning anybody else who rails against the regime. This is not about shareholder value. This is about the ruling class maintaining its control of the narrative and its power, and we all know it. And it seems to me that, perhaps the law doesn't allow a remedy, but boy, there ought to be a remedy. Do you expect to see any kind of shareholder lawsuits over this?
Well, I think the first thing to point out is that, as you said, this isn't really about shareholder value. Musk tweeted the other day the compensation of the board of directors, and they hold very, very few shares in Twitter. And so they're not aligned with you, because what the shareholders care about is turning their money into more money, and what the directors prefer is their own sinecure there with their 4 meetings a year and their fancy trips and the big compensation they get, and they're not really aligned with shareholders. So that's a problem, and Twitter should fix that. It's a problem in corporate America more generally. With respect to shareholder lawsuits, I doubt it based on what the current situation is. I'd love to see Musk make a more serious offer, line up the financing, and make a play. He could also launch a proxy battle to try to replace the board of directors, throw the bums out, and replace them with new managers. He has a lot of power as the largest shareholder, and I'd like to see him exercise that. Unfortunately, the way that corporate law is, again, since 1968, when this very pro-management, anti-shareholder, anti-activist shareholder, and since that law came in, it's much more difficult. And frankly, the Securities Exchange Commission is considering a variety of new rules designed to prevent corporate activism. And these activists, more generally, are the people who are pushing for changes in corporate America to break the stranglehold that boards have and managers have, serving things like the climate agenda and all these other things as opposed to shareholder value. Activists are really pushing to have corporate America focus on what it's supposed to be focusing on, which is making money for shareholders. And the Gensler SEC is doing what it can to try to squash activism more generally. So I think this is just one example of a broader trend against shareholder rights, which I think is distressing.
Well, Professor Henderson, the Republicans look likely to take the House and the Senate back. In 2024, with a little luck, we'll take the presidency away from this senile dust puppet masquerading as our chief executive. At that point, we will have the chance to do some legislation and get things back on track. What kind of legal reforms would you look for to address these problems? Because, frankly, I'm sick of corporate America being used as a vehicle for every commie, pinko, and leftist and their bizarre obsessions and fetishes. We got about 30 seconds.
So I think Senator Toomey just introduced some legislation. It was the Jobs Act 4.0, which contained a wide variety of pro-capital markets regulation. I'd love to see the Congress really nip the SEC in the bud and take away a lot of the power they have to promulgate things like climate disclosures, conflict mineral disclosures, pushing diversity in corporate boardrooms. And there's a lot of things the SEC is doing which Congress can change by legislation. I'd love to see them do it as a first step.
Well, thank you, Professor Todd Henderson, University of Chicago. Michael J. Marks, Professor of Law. Check out his novels. He's a writer as well as a securities lawyer. And stick around here on the Hugh Hewitt radio program. I'm guest host Kurt Schlichter. We're back with David Drucker in just a moment.